Nice. So, Gregor, we wanted to record a shorter podcast today, touching on some of the themes that are going to be coming up in the Art of Polarity online course that you'll be offering in about a month, a bit more. And
It's in beginning of March
yes, and
2026. Welcome to the new year.
yes, the year's 2026. And you recently shared a story that I think kind of is an interesting place where we can look at different polarities that we'll also be exploring in the course. So, do you want to share the story of what happened to you in the beginning of the year and
Yes,
yeah, like extrapolate the principle?
happy to share about it. At the time, I wasn't at first super happy that it happened, but so the context for the story is in general because we work with these different polarities and aspects of ourselves that sometimes go in like I'm more like this or I'm more like that, and basically I'm both. And so in general, I am I would say active person. I like to do stuff. There's always people who do more, and there's definitely always also people who do less, but that's not the point. But in general, I like to experience myself in this way. I like my work and many different interests in life. And so over many years now, I really learned to enjoy time off even more. So when Christmas came around, I was super enjoying the time off, and I'm dedicating it more, even like being offline and with my partner and the family, um, to really have less distractions and more presence. So I was like not scheduling almost nothing for the holiday season, and it was wonderful. And I really enjoyed feeling that space at the end of it. Like, okay, now I'm really ready to get going again. There was this project, like we were starting a new course and like make everything happening. My calendar was full, just the way I like it. And um, then on the day before work was supposed to start, I got sick, and then we got all sick, and then all three of us we were like in bed within a few hours. And I remember telling you still, sending you a text message on the way of going getting sick, like, yeah, I'm having a little cold now or something, probably gonna be okay in a day or two, and I'm gonna send you all the descriptions and stuff that we said. And then I think that was the last you heard from me for a number of days, because then it was really like we got the flu. Um, and I'm good again now, but like we were really, really down. Um, and it was very interesting to observe my process of first a little bit of a denial, like, yeah, it's going to be okay and I can push through, and like, to suddenly going and seeing like, okay, I think I'm going to cancel my sessions tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and for the next 5 or 6 days, because I suddenly could not imagine myself doing any, like even canceling the sessions was like, okay,
Mm,
that's all I can do for today.
mm,
um and then and that but the most interesting bit happened when I we got better again, and then I was starting to see like, okay, I'm getting better. And this took a little, as it seems to be with the real flu, that it takes longer than just like, okay, you're off the symptoms, but your system is still recovering. And then I had this list of things on my paper, but also in my mind, and kind of the backlog of things that didn't happen. And then part of my system was like, okay, let's get ready and let's get going, and I can do it. And also coming a little bit from that place, and that's something we want to explore, from that place of like, if you succumb too much to your need to rest, you will never get out of bed anymore. And that's of
mhm,
course a voice that I also learned from where I grew up and the culture around. And then at the same time feeling the reality of my body kicking in and saying like, I was so tired still after a day or two of working, where I was like, oh, and I did not have space for anything extra. And to see like, well, I actually really still need to rest a lot more, and I need to postpone and push my virtual to-do list into the future. And there was really a few days of like a debating. It was like these, like in the old cartoons, you know, like you have two voices on your shoulders, and one said like, it's okay, come on, and you just need to do it and it will get better, and the other one said like, oh my god, no, I can't.
mm,
And also like, you need to take this serious, you know, like you still need to rest. And then, and of course I know those voices, I know those dynamics. And then, even knowing my way in this, I could still feel for 2 3 days like I wasn't oriented. I
mm,
was also still not having enough energy, basically. And that in the end then told me, no, I actually still need to rest. If I don't
mm,
find the clarity right now, I need to listen to, and knowing my tendency maybe to sometimes overdo. And that was fascinating because I see that a lot in myself, in my clients, and people around me in the world, when we get to the question of like, so what's actually needed in a specific situation. And people meet that a lot in parenting, in wanting to do um, projects, also in regards to healing, to development. It's always the question, so
mm,
uh, is it more time to push,
mm,
or is it more time to care?
mm,
And so that's the territory we wanted to open, which is also the landscape that I'm super excited to explore in the upcoming course, because we started with a polarity, also looking at polarities as the gender polarities, but still then already taking it back to the more essential domains of the principles of the masculine
yeah.
and the feminine. But even more, like that's a great first training ground, but even more looking at this as a constant experience of life, that we're not just having one orientation and that's it, that life is in a constant movement, and the wisdom and the intelligence and the fun and the overwhelm at times, and the puzzling questioning sometimes comes from knowing, so what's the right thing in a given moment.
Mm,
Yeah.
nice. One question of curiosity that comes to mind is, I know we've talked about this at some point. I don't know if actually publicly, but probably in a podcast, um, places where these polarities actually merged into something more intelligent. So when you say this, like, oh, when is it time to push and when is it time to care? How do we go from being in this like pull between two different voices to something maybe more intelligent where it's like they kind of come together in a way that maybe we cannot mentally predict, but where it's not like an either or. Like what's the, I don't know, like what's the work there? Or like what has worked for you there?
Yeah, I mean that's a I think that's the question, because we
Mm,
all know that there is often a state that's more integrated, more
mm,
inclusive, less fragmented than what we experience, how we experience ourselves often. At the same time, we also know we cannot just like will or push ourselves or just like dream ourselves or hope ourselves to that place.
mm,
It's a kind of a reality of a level of consciousness that you cannot make. Otherwise, we would do it all the time.
mm,
And sometimes the very act of trying to make that happen is what makes us suffer, because then we
yeah,
resist reality. Like in
yeah,
my case, I was like wanting to be already somewhere where I wasn't.
yeah.
And then wrestling with that situation was like actually costing more energy. My situation, when I really fully, not just from my mind, but like in my whole being, understood, okay, now this is different. I still need to rest more. I wasn't then collapsing in just in my bed and doing nothing anymore.
Mm,
I was finding the rhythm between these
yes.
approaches to life that then created a new rhythm. it still took time. I still feel like a few percent of this
Hmm.
recovery still going on, but I'm not most of the time not struggling with it because I can adapt and I can shift. Like I'm back into the agency of like, yeah, but it's my life,
Hmm.
and I'm not being told by some aspect of myself
Yeah.
what my full self needs to do.
Yeah.
So the paradox, like often in healing, is not like wanting to get to a space, but it's starting to uh, realize and recognize where I am right now.
Hmm.
And that almost always includes like that there are different voices, different opinions, different impulses in oneself. Oh, you want to go exercise, but like another part doesn't want to. You want to get closer to your partner, but you also want to pull away. You want to go study, and another part was like, what's the point?
Hmm.
Trillions of examples. And so recognizing that, okay, that I am in a certain wrestling mode, and identifying the different actors or people on the stage is already very, very helpful, because you're not playing it out unconsciously through symptoms and tensions and stormy and thoughts, but you knowing like, oh, there's a process going on. And
Hmm.
from that, and retrieving the information and the wisdom and um, the motivation from each of these parts and elements, without having to say like, oh, now I listen to you, that's why you get the steering wheel now, or you get
Yeah.
the command stick, or like the thing that the conductor uses. I don't know how that's
Hmm.
called. Like without handing over authority to one element.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of alchemical power that, and it's not just like a thought process or an intellectual process. It's like it starts to alchemize the forces in you, and sometimes that goes very quick, and sometimes that's a longer process. And some aspects of this are we're kind of busy throughout our life, but it like the attention to this, the care and the love, the curiosity, the interest with these elements, and also the discernment, like what's maybe more needed and what not right now, like alchemizes the forces into something else.
Yes.
And that's the product of the work and the attention you do with these kind of states in yourself or elements.
Nice. Yeah. And then immediately what comes to mind is how that this mm, permission to let all these different things be there, and then what emerges from there paradoxically have can be much faster than trying to get somewhere by like pushing
For
away.
sure.
And I just remembered, I think that's a cool example as well from one of the webinars where I had a really cool aha moment
Mm,
that helped me do exactly what you described, where I said something like you were presenting like the four quadrants of the masculine and feminine, and I just like voiced that I notice inside of me immediately like the question of like how is this wrong? Like what is missing in this? And you just invited me to like observe where this question is coming from. And it was so helpful for me to be like, oh yeah, it's like a rebellious teenager inside of me that is like, you're not gonna tell me how life works, and I'm gonna find the mistake in this. And it was so liberating for me to like see that voice. Like before I just was that voice. And then I saw it and suddenly like I really appreciated that quality of like the questioning and the challenging, but I could also see the limitations in it, like where if I'm not open and receptive to learn something new, because I always look for the fault in something, then obviously will also hinder my learning. So yeah, that was an example of what you just described, basically happening in real time, and in this case, super fast actually.
yeah. Yeah, if the fruit's ready, sometimes it doesn't need a lot of time, but it
Yeah.
just the moment of of paying attention to that, because you described the whole process. First is like we don't even know that there is something.
Yes.
This is just the glasses through which I look onto life, and we can be totally taken hostage by our own parts or elements of ourselves, or things that maybe got arrested at some point in a life, that almost all originate from an impulse for life.
Hmm.
But if the only way to be for life in that situation is like to say like, no, I will, no, and like, I'm gonna take you down by being clever and finding the missing piece here, which helped at one point, but then became an identification. And first, then you need to see like, oh, that's what I meant. That's what I'm doing. Then you have space, and then like you see it suddenly as an actor on your stage,
Yes.
and then you can engage with the actor and it's like, oh, it's interesting. What are you doing here? Why you're actually doing that? What are you trying to do? And
Yeah.
then through that process, you educate yourself to see like, oh, there is good motivations, good intentions, but also a lot of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
It's like medicine, you start taking at one point, but you forgot why, but you keep taking and sometimes taking more. And then at one point, the effects are very, very little, but the side effects, the consequences are very, very high.
Yeah.
And then just to notice like, oh, maybe there's another way to achieve or get to what I need here. In this case, maybe a certain sense of autonomy in space, and like being seen and respected. And then without, that's the thing, it's not like, again, you cannot just think yourself to that process,
Yeah.
but then taking it serious like as an embodied movement in yourself, like it alchemizes, and suddenly it's, the next step is like already happening.
Yes.
Sometimes it needs to also like, oh, what's the other part, what I can use
Hmm.
to like, you like get to know what's the landscape around, even if you've been living in an identification for a very long time.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think um, that's really crucial sometimes, like, because we can just move something that looks like it's been stuck forever, if it starts to be something you can relate to and you can understand where it comes from, and also see, is this an actual response to the situation right now? Is that like how a 30-ish old intelligent man would want to do this?
Mm.
Or is this coming from a place that maybe is less mature, less,
Yeah.
has less capacity?
Yeah. And I think what's also really empowering to understand is that from this disidentification, like the next thing that will emerge will include this part and it will be more intelligent. So it's not like I'm sacrificing this and I'm never allowed to question anything anymore, but it will be like embedded into something bigger, which is really cool. It's really empowering. Like more choice, actually.
Yeah, and that's always when people, sometimes that happens, in sessions or in groups, are like, so what am I going to do now?
Yes.
And anything you would answer to that question, I mean, of course, sometimes it's very practical things you can do, but like if it's a question of what's my orientation to something now, and I'm asking that question regularly, so it's like part of life also.
Yeah.
But basically, we need to learn over time that anything I'm saying to that question will not be fully it, because then I already fixate the mind on one thing, and then life will always try to make itself more complete again. That means if I'm focusing on one thing, the other thing either will develop in the shadow world, or I will bounce against it in the real world through other people that will hold up that mirror
Hmm.
gracefully or less gracefully. And so I will have to deal with it anyway. And then the choice point is just like, okay, let's see how that is inside. And it's not like now I need to give up what I had before, even though in the process it can feel like it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a it's a letting go of something in order to be meeting more
Yeah.
possibilities, meeting more life, and meeting more space without having to think about it.
Yes.
That question, so what am I going to do, is answered when you don't have that question anymore. Because we also
Yes.
know moments where suddenly something gets clear and you just don't ask that anymore because it's not, you don't live in this or that, you live in, this.
Yes. Could you maybe, as a last example, talk about, so you brought this in before we hit record, this polarity of justice and mercy and how that relates to relationships? I guess maybe intimate relationships could be a cool place to, or if you want to put it in a bigger scope, that's fine as well. I'm curious
Yeah,
to
I
hear
think
you on that.
that's a that we could place anywhere. I think where it's interesting is relationships, also parenting,
Hmm.
um, and also, of course, the cultural sphere of how we relate with each other. Like when there's, let's start there for a moment. When there is this big, often named now culture wars, it's so often about being right, like the right opinion, and then there is a an orientation also like to do justice to something higher, to truth, to certain values, and the orientation is to, which is noble, let's find out what's real here, what's true. And that is very important because if we cancel that out, it's all up to whatever anybody makes up, and we we see that also in the world how super chaotic it can get.
Yeah.
So justice is in a way the orientation to the fear of chaos, or the reality of chaos, like order some things again. And then of course you can have that also in relationships, in intimate relationships, but in families or with kids, with among siblings, if you're the parent, like who
Hmm.
was right, who started, but what did you say? Or if you mediate processes or conflicts about people, like the court system is more like, so what really happened, like you want to find
Yes.
out justice, so this and then the consequence and the realities of it. And that's important. But if we only get to that orientation, we see how difficult it can get to find out what really happened, who's really said what, and the many nuances of what you said, but what you meant, but what you heard, but how you experienced it, and all of this. And then there's a point also where you say, okay, but this is important, but we also need another element here, which is the domain of mercy, of like, okay, um, we can also allow things to be. And it's not the same as I don't care because it's too difficult. I back off. But even in our justice system, we have this concept at some point, like you do penance, you do your time or whatever, there's a
Hmm.
penalty, and then you're clean again, you're even. So you're returning to innocence or being free, guilt free. But of course, if you would overdo that all the time, then everybody would do everything. It's like, yeah, but like I call on mercy, and people
Damn it. Okay. Here you go.
and people do that also too quickly. Or you go like, oh, but like look at my pain when
Hmm.
I was in pain when I did that.
Hmm.
True, that also needs to be taken into account. Like the whole
Yes.
trauma informed worldview takes that more into account. But if you can also weaponize that or get taken hostage by that again, and then certain things that need to be corrected will not have enough gravitas or weight to come in and say like, no, but yeah, but that is also what happened in the domain of like justice. Or if you have a fight with somebody or with your spouse, yeah, but like really let's clear what needs to be happening here, and
Yes.
not just hope and expect that we understand each other.
Yeah.
um, and so that's also, and even with ourselves, how clear do I want to be, how much like I want to act with integrity on myself and even follow through, and how much do I also want to be merciful with myself, with the reality that I will also always fail at
Yeah.
something. And so you can bring this really also to all aspects of life
Hmm.
again. And maybe we never think of it, but we're dealing with it
Yeah.
all the time. And then sometimes to highlight it for a moment, like these are aspects of life that you're dealing with, whether you're aware of it or not, and to get orientation in there
Yeah.
and go like, ah, interesting now. And then there's more choice, and more elegance also to navigating the territory. And then an alchemical process again can happen where maybe for some time you was always like thinking like, but I can't allow this to happen, like I have so many couples where one partner says like, but this is a principle, like this I can't allow, and la 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 la, and like doubles down on this. And the other one like, ah, but like and they kind of like attack each other with different weapons. And then sometimes suddenly there's this alchemical process where processes where these questions or debates are suddenly not happening anymore,
Yeah.
because both feel they're moving towards the same orientation,
Hmm.
but allowing also the frictions that come up in the process to be there, and using it as a creative force.
Yes. Nice. Yeah, and I can totally see how for each person the corrective experience can look so different that I
Very.
can like simultaneously see a whole world where it's like all about justice and like this rigid sharpness, and then another world where embracing that a bit more will bring more clarity again and will bring more order, and even also the like if only one is there, you cannot really take it seriously because it's like there's no differentiation for when it makes sense to apply mercy and when it doesn't, if that's just like all you do. So yeah, just seeing the beauty of how it takes both of those qualities to come together for like with yes and no. Like if I say yes each time, my yes is not worth
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, and if I say no all the time, nothing will ever happen. At one point, nobody
Exactly.
will ask me anymore because
Exactly.
I will just run into a closed door anyway. And so
Yeah.
that's exactly, it's like that's beautiful player, the yes and the no. Like they serve very distinct, different needs and dimensions of life.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this work, which I really, really enjoy, is also to um, with this then to find out, like you said, like, so what's the medicine for me in
Yeah.
this situation right now? And then not to make that like a general prescription for everybody, especially if you're in a relationship. Your medicine very often is not the medicine for the other, it's the poison for the other.
Yeah.
And to see also within oneself like these basic polarities of masculine and feminine orientations, how they can support each other to not to balance out, but to enrich and to
Yeah.
alchemize each other. And that's the real fun part, where this becomes like a more like an elegant, interesting art form. That's what I call it, the art of polarity. You're
Mhm.
playing with it rather than being played by it.
Yes. Cool. Do you want to share any closing words about the online training, like how what we've talked about um, falls into this, or how we will explore these topics in the training?
Yes, happy to. So we're starting in March, and the course is over 6 modules, and it really starts with first laying the ground what I actually mean by polarity, because there's lots of different things out there that people make of that world, and I think it's very important that we understand what we're actually engaging in. And then we use also the masculine and the feminine essential polarity, not just the gender identification, but the essence of this as the creation, the force of creation, to explore in depth in one module, the masculine and then the feminine, the beauties of it and the shadows of it. And through that, we learn even more the more we go on about the general principles that we're working with. And then also exploring deeper the mature and immature versions of this that
Mhm.
are a lot there, and to get kind of more clarity on how I react, but also what I see and witness in the world. And then from there, take it into the general application, like where any situation in life where you kind of struggle with or you have a question, like we just named before, those kind of um, wrestling with something or a struggle with something can be a practice invitation to
Mhm.
actually create the maturation in yourself that will help you to see the world in a wider view. And
Mhm.
then from there, we're going to practice this in many different ways. And one element that I really love always is when we do something, it's not just learning about the subject, but it's the community that we create together, the relationality that we share, and the principles that you can learn and then bring to every situation that you meet in life.
Mhm.
So it's a learning course, but it's a integration and healing course, and it's a maturation course where you feel like, oh, I have a new tool or way of looking at things that would before be that I would call a problem or like a
Yeah.
bothersome situation, but to see them as an invitation to grow into the next development of yourself, to your mature being that you can be.
Mhm. And do I understand right that one thing that people will walk away with is a sort of much more clear inner mapping of like where am I at in these different polarities and what my next medicine step might be?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a big portion of working with understanding my default patterns, like
Mm,
what, like as you shared before, also what have I picked up over life, childhood, culture, certain experiences that formed a certain set place of like that's how I do things,
yeah.
and to understand their value and their inner motivation, but also to see when we take away the wounded layers around that or the identifications, what wants to become of that when it's a free expression.
Nice. If people hear that soon after publishing, there's an early bird price until 8th of February, something like this.
Yes,
Yeah. So, yeah, that's an opportunity to join for 100 euros off. So if you're thinking about it, it's probably a good opportunity to jump in. And yeah, if people have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions. And yeah, looking forward to the experience in the
perfect.
group.
Yes, me too. Thank you, David, and I'm really looking forward to the course and happy to see you there. And if you have questions, until then, me know. I'm really happy to respond and have a good time.
Thank you.